What image do your clients paint of Ghislaine Maxwell?
She was in charge, and without Ghislaine, the Jeffrey Epstein that everybody grew to know, the monster that ultimately was able to gain access to dozens and dozens, if not over 100 female victims, he couldn't have existed. I mean, she created him. She was an integral part of the grooming process. And for some of them, it was years later before they really realized that that's what had happened. But not many who really knew her liked her. And most of them, after a while, grew to realize she was deceiving them all along and helping to facilitate what turned out to be some pretty brutal crimes.
How significant is this development for your many clients?
Very. I mean, it's a long time coming, and I've spoken with many of my clients today, some of whom had a lot of interactions with Ghislaine and others who had none. But either way, all of them were extremely relieved and understand the importance of this particular arrest.
Will your clients be willing to testify against Ghislaine Maxwell?
I don't know any clients of mine who would not be willing to testify. You know, at this point in time, they're all very brave, very courageous, and you know, there's strength in numbers, and over time, they all have gained more inner strength. Over time, you get these real strong voices like Maria Farmer and Courtney Wild and Virginia Roberts and Sarah Ransom, until it kind of steamrolls to the point that they just won't give up. And they really instill strength in the other victims to where now there's just this great big voice. And the survivors of this particular abuse by Jeffrey Epstein, by Ghislaine, I've never seen a stronger voice, you know? So you will not see a prosecution this time that falls apart because the victims aren't willing. That's just not happening.
What's your reaction to Prince Andrew's statement on this? He says he's bewildered at the suggestion he hasn't been cooperating with the US authorities.
His bewilderment is subsidiary to my bewilderment because he's been personally invited to provide all the information he knows for more than a decade. I know personally for over a decade, we've been asking him to come and provide all of the information that he has. I think I personally invited him at least 3 times to tell us what he knows. And he just flat out refuses. I mean, as much as he keeps putting out these statements that he's bewildered and he doesn't understand or whatever, it's not faring very well for him. He clearly has information. He stayed at Mr. Epstein's various residences for a period of time. He met a lot of people who are now making it very well known that they were also victims. He's been a longtime friend of Ghislaine Maxwell. He was a very close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. He clearly made observations, heard things, saw things, and engaged in enough with people to where if you have nothing to hide or if you know information, come share it. If you don't, it certainly makes you look a certain way, and that way is not good.
Do you think he's deliberately, evading authorities?
There's no doubt that he's deliberately evading authorities. I mean, how much more clear? When have you ever heard a U.S. Attorney's Office at a press conference say, we are inviting you to come over, and he's not on a plane right now coming over? There's no doubt that they want to talk to him. There's no doubt that we have wanted to talk to him, and there's also no doubt that he hasn't spoken with anybody. So this is not helpful for him unless he immediately comes over and shares all of the information he has. I just don't see how he has any credibility left on this particular subject.
How do your clients feel about his relative silence?
Bewildered.
Angry?
Yeah, well, they're more angry at the various statements that he's made about, that he's offered to be cooperative, these things that there's clients who know him. There's clients who are familiar with the fact that he was around, and you know, they're familiar with the evidence. They know that he was on the flight logs. They know that he was in Ghislaine's apartment with Virginia Roberts. They know that there are hard questions that he should be answering, especially if there's any bit of defense for his own actions. Then these are things that he should be, you know, kind of owning up to. And the fact that he's not is very frustrating to the victims. To them, it's kind of like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine. Why are you able to live above the law? And that's what he's doing.
She avoided the cameras. To some extent, she avoided the authorities, though it would appear that they had been discreetly tracking her for some time.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that the public at large may not have known where she was, but anybody who really needed to know where she was knew where she was. And I think that the prosecutors have moved pretty quick on this, because you're talking about very historic crimes that they're investigating. They've been very deliberate in the way that they've investigated, very thorough. I mean, I can tell you that personally. They've been very thorough in the way that they've investigated that. And, you know, it's only 1 year to the anniversary of Jeffrey Epstein being arrested, and they've indicted Ghislaine. So, you know, given that you're talking about crimes 25 years old, a year period of time to make sure that you've crossed your T's and dot your I's isn't really that long. And they had a pulse on her whereabouts the whole time.